It's great to be here. Before I jump into a bit about the Cavalry and some of the things we have going on, I just want to give some background, some things that I have going on in my day job over at Rapid7. I run a group called Strategic Services. My group provides security program guidance to organizations, executives, board members, to be able to help them align their programs for the future. I also spend a lot of time doing investigations, cybercrime investigations, also studying those data breaches to understand how attackers are thinking and how they're actually navigating around within those environments. And then outside of Rapid7, outside of the Cavalry, I actually run a hacker conference in Chicago called ThoughtCon. And so I guess right here, this is an open invitation. If there are any researchers in the room that want to come and come to Chicago, I'd be happy to host you there. It's a great conference. It's a 2-day event with international researchers that present on various security topics. And then finally, personally, I enjoy thinking quite a bit about the evolution of technology. Where technology is going, where it will end up in 10, 20, 30 years, and then layering that with what the security implications of that technology is. So as Karen mentioned, there's a group called the Cavalry, and that's something that we sparked into existence about a couple of years ago. A colleague and I and a friend, Josh Corman, who at the time was working at Akamai, were having lots of conversations about the future of the internet, future of technology, the implications of security, and how those all intertwine. And then we also were having conversations about, what's the impact going to be for our family members, for our children, for our children's children, as technology advances. And so we balled that all together and tried to come up with ideas and ways to get and catalyze research and other activities to get ahead of when these problems will exist in the future. And so what we did is we could have gone and tweeted about it. We could have gone and produced a blog post and put it out on the internet with hope that someone would read that content. But instead, we took a risk and we submitted it to basically one of the most hostile hacker conferences on the planet, DEF CON in Las Vegas. And to our surprise, we were accepted. And so fortunately we were accepted and we were slated in the largest room at DEF CON. That room will hold about 25 to 3,000 people. But unfortunately we were given the time slot of 10 a.m. on Sunday. Anybody who's gone to Vegas at DEF CON or gone to Vegas for any type of event, 10 a.m. on Sunday is when most people are just coming back from the vendor parties. We're actually going to sleep. And so to our worry, we thought, well, we're probably not going to get more than 40, 50 people in the room. But then to our surprise, as we walked out onto stage, that room was full. There was about 2,000, 2,500 people, lots of people standing, and the conversations we had about the topics I'm going to discuss really helped spark this movement into existence. It was the people in that room and the media that attended that really gave our ideas life. So we started thinking about and speaking about everything that revolves around these first two statements. The first one is, technology is advancing faster than our ability to secure it. I think everybody in this room and this entire event has been talking about that and thinking about that. But when we also thought about combining that with the idea that technology's impact on human life and public safety is actually increasing, when you combine those and where those intersect, we can end up in a bad situation in the future. And so the idea around the Cavalry is to collect existing research, collect researchers, and then connect them together. And so in the Cavalry movement, we're actually personally not doing a whole lot of research. We're facilitating conversations. We're taking people who do automotive hacking and people who do medical device hacking and putting them in a room together, and allowing them to collaborate. And also cross-collaborate with people outside of what we consider the hacking community. We have people who contribute to the Cavalry that are lawyers. We have folks who are marketing people and PR people. We have folks from the media who often collaborate as well. And the whole idea is to then, again, catalyze security research that would otherwise not happen unless we were actually pushing it forward and trying to get in front of these problems. Last year, a year later, we spent a year collaborating, working with organizations, talking with people, and we actually went and produced a paper. Now, I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail on this paper, because we could talk for about an hour and a half just on this topic, but we published something called the 5-Star Automotive Cyber Safety Framework. And essentially, it was designed to help align the automotive manufacturers along a comprehensive set of rules that they would adhere to and follow, and they could attest to, and to show not themselves, but the consumers, that they're actually aligned with cybersecurity and cyber safety in mind. So there actually are 5 areas within that framework. Safety by design, third-party collaboration, which talks about collaborating with security researchers, evidence capture within those vehicles. So when there is a cyber safety issue, there's actually some evidence that can be captured and understood. Security updates. Many cars are smart cars today. How are those updates when there's a vulnerability in those cars deployed within the systems? And then, of course, segmentation and isolation. If I was to hack into the entertainment system, can I cause problems with the controls, with the steering, the braking, and other things that are within those cars? And actually, we released this last year. We've been having conversations with various automotive manufacturers, through various people behind the scenes. We actually, unfortunately, not a lot of automotive manufacturers really earn very many stars on this list. The only one that we're actually able to really track and actually show that it was actually doing many of these things, and actually they just earned another star a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, is Tesla. As we look at this list, they have between 3 and 4 stars, depending on how you slice and dice it. But they are definitely leading the way when it comes to cyber safety and cyber security within the automobile industry. So now we're going to just spend a couple of minutes, or a minute or two, on sort of a risk-based exercise, and which will then lead into a next segment of this talk as well. So this is more of a fun exercise to get you thinking about the risks that exist in some of the technology from the past. I'm going to show you some products, and then we're going to go into an exercise where we'll show you a table where we can actually talk through some of those risks. So these are some products that I went and looked, and try to look from the past few decades to try to identify what are some things that consumers would have purchased back years ago, and what are those risks that exist that could have existed within those products. So here's the first product. This is a product that was designed in the 60s that was designed to help stop bedwetting. So just let you think about that for a minute. We also have a microwave oven that we'll talk about. We have a Walkman, as you can see, this sort of loving embrace, listening and sharing a Walkman, and sharing some music. We also have a mobile phone, if everyone remembers that, those big giant devices. And then we have a robot. We have a robot that can help you clean your house. So some of the risk analysis here, we look at the 1960s. This device is called the Light Alert, We Alert. It actually helps alert when your children wet the bed. And has a little handheld device, I guess you can put in your room, and when the child wets the bed, alarms go off. Now if you think of 1960s technology, the only risk that I can really come up with there is possible electrocution. When thinking about that product, I remember seeing my parents' and my grandparents' technology back in the late 70s, and every single plug had this type of connector with it, a cloth. Coated wire, and I sort of raises some fear as being a child laying in a bed with these types of wires around if they're trying to monitor me from wetting the bed. Then we have microwave oven. There's things like user error, and then the rumors. Don't look too close to the window. You might get radiation that may existed in the microwaves in the late 70s. And then, of course, the cassette player. The risk that existed there would be things like damaged tapes, hearing damage. As you can see, we're starting to get into sort of the impact of sort of human interaction, but hearing damage possibly existed when you slide that line or the dial too far up, and then you hit play on your device. We have mobile phones. Now, these were not smartphones. These were the mobile phones of the 90s, which essentially allowed you to make a phone call and possibly actually dial a wrong number from time to time. And then we have the robot vacuum, which is sort of bleeding into sort of future technology or today's technology. But there's the possibility of damage, like it could do something wrong, but also the possibility of attacking an owner. And I actually was thinking about this and actually found an article that actually showed that this actually really happened. And so as you can see, there's a photo here. You have a young woman who I think was in a sleeping bag, and for some reason the robot woke up in the middle of the night and attacked her while she was sleeping. And they had to call the paramedics to help her get her hair out of that engine. So now that was a fun piece. Now we're going to spend just a couple of minutes going through the next 40 years and do the same type of risk analysis. If you think about the 2020s, elastic transportation systems. These are devices that are going to combine things like Uber technology and self-driving cars and allow us to go all over the place around the world without having someone drive it. Now, as I go through these technologies, actually think about this from both a consumer standpoint and also from an IT security professional. Imagine in the 2020s that you actually have a whole fleet of these within your business, and your executives are actually taking these around your city. 2030s, we have things like social robots. The best example here would be like autonomous physician's assistants, which would essentially help to create a consistency of care within the hospital. I actually was admitted to a hospital a couple of months ago, and I can tell you, laying in a hospital bed, getting different nurses every few hours was actually very disorienting. So if I had some consistency of care, some device I could have a conversation with and tell them how I felt, that would actually have made the experience much better. We have the 2040s, which is the concept of digital telepathy. And I remember the students were actually asking questions about this, and I actually hadn't heard of it called carbon hacking. I really wasn't familiar with that term, but this is brain-computer interfaces. And I sort of predict here that this may have a breakthrough in the next, say, 20, 30 years or so in that area. And then if you move beyond that, there's this concept of like sleepwalking. If you have the ability to do brain-computer interfaces and you combine that with technology like lucid dreaming, we all run out of time during our day. Why not take advantage of things that are still too difficult for computers to solve and computers to perform, but we can do those while we're sleeping. So let's do another risk analysis of those different types of technology. If you're looking at the 2020s, there's things like software stability that's going to impact that. Logic flaws in those vehicles. Instead of turning left, they turn right into a brick wall. Also remote compromise that may exist. Imagine someone hacking into a self-driving car and causing harm to the occupants that are within that vehicle. We have autonomous business assistants or social robots that'll be in our lives. And there's also could be logic flaws. They can give us wrong information. There'll be privacy concerns. All of those types of devices have cameras and voice recognition, and they'll be embedded in our lives. Also, malicious diagnosis. If they're asking questions like, how do you feel? Do you need more pain medication? If the world allows those robots to make those types of decisions, there could be some malicious injection of diagnosis that can cause harm to the patient. Then we have digital telepathy. When we perfected that brain-computer interface, there's obvious privacy concerns. If someone actually can tap into your thoughts, also maybe perform some malicious control, if that's combined with like augmented reality and other types of heads-up displays. And then of course ransomware. If you happen to have one of those devices that you rely on, ransomware is going to follow there as well. Somebody can take over your life and limit your ability to connect and communicate with the world around you. Then of course sleepwalking. If you think of taking advantage of systems, just like Bitcoin mining takes place on random machines around the internet through botnets, imagine cycle stealing people as they're sleeping and trying to perform tasks for themselves. So what does this come down to? Like I mentioned earlier, this comes down to human life and public safety. This is what's going to impact. We're going to stop hearing more and more about things like data breaches and PII compromises, and we're going to start hearing more around cyber safety and the impact of cyber on the world around us and the people that we love and in our own lives. So we also need a revolution, and this is going back to the cavalry and going back to the discussions around what can we do to change this. Well, we have some things we can do. We have the community approach. We have a whole auditorium full of hackers at places like DEF CON and other places around the world. We have the cavalry movement that I discussed earlier. We also have organizations like Build It Securely that can take advantage of the lack of knowledge in those communities, people who are building those new types of interesting devices, and help them educate and give them tools and frameworks to be able to build more secure products that they bring to market. There's also the government approach. There's the idea of new legislation that can be introduced. Now this always gets scary. You think about, well, new laws, we don't need new laws, but all new laws are always going to be created, so we can influence those, and we've been doing those types of things through the cavalry as well to try to educate lawmakers. Also, software reliability. These types of things will be tested when we get into the future and we get to devices that are going to impact public safety and human life. And then we have compliance regulations. Maybe those will come to play. Various people have various different opinions about when you actually introduce compliance, if they're really effective, but those things might come about when we get some of this new technology. Then there's the informed consumer approach. And this is where all of us can contribute. Even if you don't want to contribute to the grassroots movements, to the hacking community, to the research that's going on, this is something that's very simple. You can teach people how to update their devices. You know how to do it, but there's lots of people who actually don't know how to do that. If you teach them and show them how simple it is, they'll actually go and tell other people, and that will spread. And they'll give more knowledge and more accessibility to doing things like performing a security update. There's also the ability to take your children to places like hacker conferences. These exist. These exist for children as well, not only just for school-age children, but also very young children. And then you have places like Kickstarter and Indiegogo where you can vote for your money when you see a security-minded project out there. And then finally, hacking your own technology. You have the ability to do that. You find vulnerabilities, and you actually can contribute back to finding new issues. And then finally, just to conclude, what's the Cavalry's future? Well, we have several things that we're working on. We have a global education foundation we're working on forming. We have a 5-star library that we're developing. We're actually going to launch a medical device 5-star library. And then we also have industry summits that we're working on producing. Now, when you think about all of this, how can you contribute? We can't do this without you. This isn't going to be just me that's going to solve these problems. It's not going to be some other people out there. This falls to me, this falls to you, this falls to all of us to try to get in front of these issues. Thanks for listening.